right. Okay. Hey, I'm recording the screen just so you are aware.
How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Before we dive into it, I'm just gonna mention a few things that just surround like the format of this, just so you're aware. Um, it's gonna be give or take an hour. Sometimes it's 52 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour and 8 minutes. Um, I'll give you a chance to review anything before it's shared. So like after we're done, I'll upload an unlisted link to YouTube, send it to you. You can have a look. If there's anything you prefer, I edit out. Obviously, I will. If you don't want me to share anything, that's all fine too. Like I'll consider anything a bonus. Um, I have like a roster of questions that I'm hoping to talk you through, but I'm very happy just like going to wherever the conversation takes us. Um, I will not be sharing any personal information other than your username. So when I upload the video, it will say, random exit and then today's
Yeah.
date. That's it. Anything else, like if you want to share it, by all means, but I won't probe into anything. And uh, yeah, I'm doing this whole like project just for my own curiosity. I want to learn more about my favorite accounts. I figured somewhere along the way that if I share it, it can be valuable to others, and that's kind of what my early results are telling me. And yeah, I think that was everything. Do you have any questions around like the format before we dive into it?
No, but it's kind of interesting that you started doing this because I always thought it would be really something in this area would be really interesting for someone to do because whatever you want to call it, like a culture or community that's like kind of built up
Yeah.
in this like niche area of Instagram is like pretty fascinating and it's like a pretty organic community or whatever label you want to put on it. I think it's pretty fascinating and it's like worth documenting.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly thought so, and it's nice to hear you say that. Um, I mean, I've dedicated a lot of time and energy into whatever this thing is, for the past
Yeah,
several
I've
years.
watched a few of them, especially like of some of like my particularly favorite accounts, and it's like it's really interesting
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was
just to
thinking
be
too. But
like,
no one else has done it, at least not to my knowledge. You have sort of the usual suspects that are more vocal and outspoken, and they have a podcast or whatever. But I didn't want to. Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to learn more about the behind the scenes stuff. Like, who are the personalities that, to me, have such a important impact in like online culture?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also pretty interesting in the ways that I think a lot of these people, even though they may have extreme accounts,
Hmm. Hmm.
maybe subversive in some ways, like there's certain aspects of their personality that line up, but a lot of them are like, they're not edge lords. They're not
Totally.
like
They're like the
they're not bad
sweetest
people.
people. Yeah, they're like
Yeah,
working corporate jobs, really nice,
yeah,
compassionate, empathetic, articulate, friendly people. And then they
for
post like the
sure.
craziest shit you can ever imagine online.
Yeah, so it's an interesting dichotomy for sure.
Yeah. Um, we'll get into some more of that because obviously, like, you are on the receiving end of the questions for a
Right.
reason. Um, who are you?
Uh, I'm. I feel like it's so interesting being like on Instagram where everyone has handles. So I want to like deliver it like hackers, like I am zero cool, like a random exit. Uh, my real name's on my Instagram account. If like I'm not hard to find, I'm not super secretive.
Yeah.
Like you know about who I am. I live in Los Angeles. Um, I moved to Los Angeles when I was 13. Before that, I was in Southeast London.
Oh,
Um, in a
nice.
very different environment.
Yeah. I lived in
And
Southwark
yeah, I
for a
mean,
few years.
what's that?
I lived in Southwark for a few years.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
nice. I'm from Lewisham and Suffolk also.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
Old Kent Road, that whole area, you know. Um, but other than that, just like kind of mostly an LA native who has been in the underground culture of LA,
Hmm.
which is like music and art fields. Like not so much physical art for me, but mostly the music. But being in that world
Hmm.
for a long time.
Interesting. Okay, so Yeah, music is obviously something that comes through a lot on your account. Um, what role has that played in, I don't know, in informing who you are?
Um, I mean, I'm probably a pretty large one.
Hmm.
Um, if I haven't been in bands or making music, I've been around people making music. Like I help people shoot music videos when I have time. Like with this production company I work with, who are very close friends of mine.
Mm.
Like it's never not a part of. If it's not like the main focus, it's always in the peripheral. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's always something that I'm actively involved in.
nice. And
Even as a fan, I'm usually pretty active in it.
what's the appeal?
I don't know. I think there's a certain level of performance in music that appeals to a certain demographic of people.
Mm.
There's two things I think. For me, I got into it through the like performance aspect of like I wasn't a good singer, but
Mm.
I was like invited to be in bands as the front man because of my um ability to be uninhibited.
Yeah.
And and after that, like when I started to really try to learn more about the craft, there's a certain like sitting and like just being obsessive over something. Like for instance, I looked at your channel and you have music stuff on there, and
Mm.
like you can probably understand that because the type of person that knows what like an Ezzy and Aki pedal is or a Fairfield circuitry pedal is like a certain kind of you've gone down a rabbit hole to like about as far as you can
Pretty
on like
much.
and like gear, so like the appeal.
Yeah, yeah,
And
of
I think
course.
there's like the performance expressive mixed with like the kind of obsessive and like tinkering.
How does that factor into your Instagram account?
I think it's like I think because I think there's a myth a lot of people have of like creativity where they think it's like sprung forth from the head of Zeus, like it comes from them and their unique experience.
Mm.
I think almost all creativity is curation.
Hmm.
Like I think curation of like your taste, curation of like, whatever um utensils you use to express yourself, you're borrowing from someone else somewhere along the line. You're not like using a wholly unique language, right? So I think like Instagram like is really appeals to my curation,
Yeah.
you know? Like if in an ideal world, like jobs like museum curator or even interior designer seem really appealing because
Hmm.
those ideas of like having access to all these things and putting them together in a unique way to create like its own flavor, I think is really appealing.
I love that you say that, and I couldn't agree more. Um, I know it doesn't happen so much anymore to me, but back in the day, a lot of people would be offended if I would, repost something without properly giving them credit or whatever it may be. And my view was that if I remember, I'll do it if it's someone that I think would be uh, worthwhile to promote. If my friends would like this person, then yeah, I'll try to tag them. If I think that this was a random fluke where they actually did something good, then I might be less inclined to do so. But my starting point is always like people are not creative. Everything that everyone does is just like a combination of things that other people have done in the past, with limited, if any, exceptions. Like that's kind of and where creativity comes from to me is like work. It's curation, or it's building something, or spending a lot of time thinking about something. I know the comedian Mel Brooks. He's won like EGOT, like the Tony and Oscar and Grammy. Well, I forget whatever else is in there. Um, Emmy, that's it. And he, someone interviewed him, and he was like 90 years old, and he's saying, "I'm still like waiting for inspiration to strike." If you're that accomplished and you've lived a very successful like creative life, and you still think this is something that just deals with hard work and combining influences from others, then that's the approach that I'll take too, because the guy's clearly like smarter than I am.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, Mel Brooks is fantastic. I
Yeah,
mean, but yeah, like I think yeah, it's like I think creativity comes not from like it comes from the itch.
yeah, yeah,
It's like have an itch to like, I mean, to put it in again in musical terms, like sometimes you'll pick up the guitar and you'll like start, playing around with it, and then you'll put it down, and then like nothing has changed, but 5 seconds later you're picking it up again,
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep playing, and then put it back down and pick it up, and like it's like this itch,
yeah,
like I think. I don't draw, but I imagine it's the same for people that sketch or the people that like craft things with their hands. Like I
mm,
just have shit fucking hands to make art, so I
mm.
don't like. I'm like not talented in that respect. So anytime I used to try, it would just be frustrating. So I navigated to other fields.
I'm not very accomplished, but I've spent a lot of time drawing and creating stuff. And yeah, part of it is like it's fun to create. There's another maybe like darker side to it, which is just it's nice to do something that continues to kick your ass. You know,
Yeah,
it
this
never it
definitely.
never looks the way you want it to look.
No, this
Yeah,
for sure. That aspect to it,
yeah,
like there's a self-flagellation aspect to creating
exactly,
anything.
exactly.
Like, I know it's like a pretty old cliche, but you know, um, like art is never finished; it's just released.
That's
That
right.
mentality, like
Yeah,
everything I've ever released into public consumption in music or anything else,
yeah,
I'm always like, that's not finished. In my head, it's never
yeah,
finished.
yeah.
Like,
Totally. I've heard people say
and
like art is knowing when to stop, and
yeah.
I heard like painting is hard work, but selling it is art. Yeah,
I believe that.
yeah. So I just want to backtrack a little bit.
Yeah,
So you have this Instagram account. It's called Random Exit.
yeah.
What is it? If you were to describe it to someone who has never seen it before, what do you post?
Um, I think I'm a weird one, uh, like because I don't have that many followers per se. Um, I'm not like I'm not one that posts like into the feed that much. Like the feed posts I make are like kind of more like altered Tumblr images of my like flavor,
Hmm.
And it started out as just a regular Instagram profile, and that name, like Random Exit, goes like back to my MySpace. Like I had that name in MySpace. It's like been my online handle in my entire internet life, which is kind of fun,
Hmm.
like to have that continuity. But I got like dragged to Facebook from MySpace, and I just never resonated with that. So when Instagram came around, I was a late adopter. I was like, this is just people posting pictures of like their idealized life, like them in front of a sunset, and like a friend of mine coined a term, we would call them graham crackers, like just these people that would like have like, oh, I'm out to a nice meal, and so it didn't really interest me. And then I had a friend of mine kind of dragged me on there kicking and screaming like, I don't want to do it, I don't want to have an Instagram account. And at first it was just regular, whatever, normal Instagram account, but then I started like more posting stuff to my stories that was subversive.
Hmm.
So like if you looked on my account, you wouldn't think anything was weird
Hmm.
until you looked at my stories. And back in the day, I used to post like real close to the edge. Like I definitely couldn't post that stuff now. I don't think.
Hmm.
Like I got a lot of like, you're gonna get banned.
Hmm.
Like and I think I don't know how it works because it's not transparent at all, but it would flag me for stuff that it just thought might be that wasn't even close to being bad because it just had me in the radar,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, looks like it might be nudity, even though there's no nudity in this photo, so we're going to give you like a warning. But yeah, I think it's kind of stream of consciousness.
Hmm.
Like I try not to be too thoughtful on if I should or shouldn't. If I feel like, oh, is this like, should I not post this? I'll probably post it just because in like I have a personal mantra, like in all things rebel against yourself first. Like if you can't rebel against your own self,
Mm.
like you're not going to accomplish anything else in of worth, I don't think.
That is a good mantra. I might steal it.
Yeah, you got to it's basically just go outside your comfort zone
Yeah,
always.
yeah.
I mean
Um,
it's the same thing.
so I saw one of the contestants of Survivor. the reality TV show.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
I sent a cameo request for a birthday wish for someone that's very close to me, and this Survivor contestant talked about the significance of um, this like decade in this person's life and the age and all those things, and they said no matter what you do, seek out adversity, and I kind of like that. I think that's something to live by, and that it's coming from a reality TV star from Survivor makes it even better to me. It's, I don't know. There's something there. If you don't
No, I
challenge yourself,
agree.
like how will you grow? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely. I think if you ask someone over, to look back on their life,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what they would tell you form them is their adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not necessarily the positive things. It's kind of the responses to challenges that shape you as a person, and I think that can be applied to anything you do.
So I agree, but I,
Which
I
seems
I do have
really
a
like
yeah.
hyperbolic to apply this to an Instagram account, but
But
like,
I've struggled with this in the past because if adversity is the thing that makes us grow, right? Like we learn from our setbacks and our struggles and suffering and all those things. Should you take that into account when you are interacting with other people? So I've thought about it in the context of work. Do I try to make everything as easy as possible for everyone around me? Is that actually beneficial for them? Or even in my personal life, like if I'm only a nice guy all the time or a nice person and friendly and helpful, am I is there like an opportunity cost there? If I'm just honest and a little bit causing a little bit of friction, maybe like people will actually benefit from it long term. I'm not a parent, but I would imagine like down the line, if I choose to have kids, like do you always want to be the helicopter, what's it called, curling parent, sweeping off the,
yeah,
or do you want your kids to have a tough time so they can learn and grow? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for it, but there is a tension there for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't either because I think maybe there's a balance. I definitely err on the other side of that, where I make life challenging for people unless I'm very, very close with them.
Yeah.
Like interactions with me with which can lead to trouble at like workspaces
Yeah.
because I'm not um diplomatic.
Mm.
And I definitely would probably be I'm prone to be as like controversial in real life as I am online.
Okay.
Like and not necessarily in a negative way where I'm trying to like hurt people's feelings, but just like I like poking the bear.
Yeah. Yeah. I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
I get
Like
that sense from you just seeing, what you post online, of course.
yeah.
Um, when did you start your account?
Like I don't know the exact date. I want to say it's like 2015, 16, 17, maybe somewhere in that
Okay.
range. Not I wasn't I was kind of a late adopter.
But you went straight into the type of post that you're posting now. Is that right?
Not immediately. It took a few years.
Okay.
Like before, I think like I started posting weird stuff to my stories pretty early on when stories happened, but I think I really leaned into it when I had like I hate like setting quarantine as like an event that really shapes anything because I
Hmm.
think people overblow like maybe the effects it had on them. But like I was still working throughout quarantine at a restaurant, and I was one of only two employees that was still there,
Hmm.
and the streets were empty. It was like the like no one was around,
Hmm.
and it was only pickups, right?
Hmm.
So I had a lot of free time, and I spent a lot of that free time on Instagram, and I think that's where I really started to post more. Like I started to get like a lot more time to like really be like, okay, let me do this, All right, I got nothing to do.
So why
Standing here.
why did you choose to engage with Instagram specifically? Because there are lots of things that are competing for your attention.
Yeah, I don't like the other form like I obviously it's an online thing
Hmm.
and I enjoy being online to a degree.
Hmm.
The other avenues like Twitter seems like I don't want to tell people anything.
Hmm.
Twitter seems like someone really obsessed with the sound of their own voice, and it's not very artistic to me.
Yeah.
I started finding these accounts on Instagram that like it started out with like music accounts like this doesn't count Insane Johnny.
Oh yeah,
And at
with
the
a
time,
Z, right? Instead of the
yeah,
S.
yeah,
Yeah,
Insane Johnny.
yeah.
And he was
Familiar.
posting a lot back then. Freddie Gibbs was posting a lot of crazy stuff on his Instagram story.
Mm.
And I was at the time making memes for like from scratch, making memes for like music art group I work with, right?
Mm.
And I got like a meme I created on Insane Johnny, and it was like kind of a triumph for me. It was like posted like got like a few thousand likes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like a it was like a meme about that Lou Reed Metallica album Lulu. Um, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I was being inspired by like that's when I found accounts like Ben Ditto and Suffering Meat and
Mm-hmm.
like Swamp Bug and shit like that. And I started following those guys, and I was like, oh, this is like a much cooler corner of Instagram with like stuff that aligns, like aligns with your aesthetics. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, this seems like the better version of this.
yeah,
It kind of opened my world to that corner of it.
yeah. I I've had very similar realizations and like revelations in my past where you see people that are so like aspirational to me. It was almost like coming to understand that this is something that exists. It isn't just this like dormant phenomenon in the back of your head. It's like manifested into the world by people that are really smart and funny and astute. You know, like people that have great taste, um,
Yeah,
that have progressed it further. It almost like it blew my mind a couple of times when I would realize that there are people that are younger than me, that are so funny and have such exquisite taste when it comes to humor or aesthetics or things that are interesting or politics or whatever. It's like to me, I think I needed to understand that this was something that you could do. It's like an outlet for impulses that are swirling around in my brain somewhere in there. But these people managed to take it and turn it into something productive and something that I think benefits like the world. And
yeah.
I guess that's part of this project, like trying to get to the bottom of how they made that realization. So for any other parts of life like that, it could be something to pursue, by awakening that in whatever else in any other domain. Um, what how many followers do you have?
I think it. I like gain followers that I'll lose a bunch because I don't like. I'm not sure because I think it's like a pretty chaotic vibe.
Hmm.
I think it's like 18, a little over 1,800.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
And
so not too many
how many
compared to like
have you had in the past? Is this are you at the
that's the
top of the
most.
mountain?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How do you think
Like
about that number? Because it's not an insignificant number.
I guess not. I mean, it seems like obviously, like, there's a lot of strangers looking at my
Yeah,
stories,
that's
and
right.
like, so there's something strange about that. And then, like, I'll get interactions with people that are like, I don't know.
Mm.
So it's something interesting about that because I don't know. I've had like, not, it's, I guess I don't think about it.
Yeah.
I'm not shooting. It's not a goal I'm shooting for numbers. It's just like, oh, that's cool.
Hmm.
And
What's cool about it?
I guess like just cool that people are looking at stuff. If I can give like a little like chuckle or like to someone throughout their day
Hmm.
and they want to share that with someone, that's like, look at my cool rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at my cool thing. There's something inherently human about that. And
Hmm.
it although it's not happening on a physical level, I don't think it's like telling a joke at the water cooler at work. It's the same vibe.
Yeah.
You're still or talking about the show that you watched in a different like the the same enjoyment. I mean, I think it gets labeled like parasocial in a negative context. A lot of the relationships
Hmm.
between people online that don't know each other physically, but I found like people to be very kind for most part.
Yeah.
and very, especially like some of the other people with larger accounts who've grown their accounts. Like, I've like drunk texted or called them, and like they're the sweetest people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've like called Swamp Bug drunk, like, "What's up, dude?" And like, like shit like that. I'm just like, oh, these people are nice people. Like,
Yeah.
and over watching them, like, even though their accounts are like, you know, meme accounts or culture accounts or whatever. I mean, a meme account seems like such a weird way to label it
Yeah.
because it's more like an expression of like their tastes. So a meme account seems like a really limited like diagnostic.
I think
Um,
you did a great job of articulating that. I've often thought the same thing, and maybe just by adding any sort of label to it, you you diminish it somehow. You know, you
yeah,
already you set out a direction and you say like this is now everything that you are. And I
yeah,
don't think that's the case because we have people that are actually like challenging the format in every imaginable way that sort of fits inside of the frame of the space you have on Instagram. And I don't see how you can label that, at least not credibly. But yeah, that's where you end up with shit posting and schizo posting and meme accounts and Instagram and whatever it may be. But I don't think any of those are reflective of the reality of it.
agreed,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah, I think and I think that's why I like that you're doing this because I think there's like layers to this stuff that
hmm,
people have immediately like put labels on it,
yeah,
and
yeah,
haven't really taken the time to explore stuff.
yeah,
And I think, there's something going on in people interacting with this and interacting with people on it that's like a little deeper than, no, that's just online.
yeah, totally. But it's easier for people to dismiss stuff if they have that sort of reductionist view. I know from myself, you know, when I was young, I always liked call it you know like 60s and 70s music when I was growing up when I was you know
Right,
14 and discovered you know like Jefferson Airplane or Jimi Hendrix or whatever, and then I would sort of lament the fact that music today is so shitty because it's just whatever you hear when you go to the grocery store, you know, and
right.
it's the like techno remix of Mariah Carey kind of a thing, you know, it's like not necessarily my bag, and I used to think that I was born too late, or you know, I was a little hipster kid, and I would think that all this window has closed. You know, that it was just this magical thing that happened, and then everything else took over. But I think the exact same thing is happening now. You know, I was clearly I was wrong. I was a kid, but these like little nuggets that stand the test of time will stand the test of time regardless of when they first started. And time is like the best filter for that stuff. But
Uh, Agreed 100. And
yeah,
I think the consensus of anyone that you ask about like anything that is a notable thing,
mm-hmm.
I mean, they're always like, yeah, we didn't know it was important when it was happening. Like that's the like one unifying factor. Like,
Yeah,
oh, we didn't know that this was gonna, like Velvet Underground didn't know that they were gonna be Velvet Underground.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Like
They were just playing
they
a
were
show
just
or
making
making an
music.
album.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
like I think it's why I like a lot of living in LA, I'm exposed to a lot of this
mm,
because there's a lot of people that come here
mm.
to pursue acting and music, but that's not really what they're pursuing. What they're
Pursuing
pursuing is something
fame.
else.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And like there's obviously an aspect of wanting to be recognized for anything you make.
Hmm.
But when I was a kid and like it'd be like artists would be like, yeah, I wish I'd never become famous. I'd be like, I don't understand that. Like, why would you not want to be famous? And as you get older, you're like, oh yeah, I would much rather be a much respected niche, like influential
Yeah,
creator or something than like someone who makes social pap,
yeah,
like
yeah.
just
That's right.
this evanescent like art that's only going to be there for that moment in time and is not going to endure. It's going to just drift away. It's just like the flavor of the month.
Since you have a background in the UK, I forget his name, but you know the Streets, the artist.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He always said like go for a cult classic, not bestseller. I think that's a
yeah.
sound approach to life, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and then you see like artists like Nick Cave who can last their entire career
Hmm.
from like a teenager till an old man with uncompromising their art.
Yeah,
And like there's that letter he wrote to MTV where he's like, "Thank you for nominating me, but my art is not a horse in a horse race,
yeah,
and to treat it as such worries me that my muse will leave,"
yeah,
or something along those
yeah.
lines. It's like,
Beautiful. But you know that
yeah,
maybe this is just who I am, but I take almost like a class perspective to a lot of this stuff too. Um, you know Steve
well,
Martin,
I'm there.
the comedian, right? Um,
Who, did you
Steve
say?
Martin.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So he's a comedian. He's an actor. He's a writer. Philosophy. I think he has like a master's in philosophy. Anyway, he went to school for
banjo
philosophy.
player.
He's a banjo player and one of the finest banjo players in the whole world. So like to me, it's a pretty incredible guy. Um,
Yeah,
I know he did one of those like masterclass things where he get to talk about any topic of his choosing, I suppose. And he said a lot of people come to me and they said, how can I become famous? And he said, I think it's the wrong question to ask. The question you should be asking yourself is, how do I get good? Um,
yeah,
but you know, it's a privileged perspective because I think of people like you know the painter like Van Gogh,
yeah,
who's just having like a really shitty life on all accounts for as far as I can tell.
for sure.
And then he died, and then people were like, "Oh, cool! Look at this box of paintings; these are pretty good." And then there's something very romantic about that whole image, and they turn him into something that he never was in his lifetime. Um, so I agree that there's something like aspirational around creating art that's enduring and that resonates with people. But also, like, does it fundamentally ultimately matter? Like, you need to have a lifestyle that's okay, and you need to feel like you're you know you can live a life of at least moderate like dignity.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
think if you're too uncompromising and you're just like, no, I'm going to suffer for the sake of art, it's like that sucks. You know, I don't want to do that. So
No,
yeah,
I mean, um, I guess I think there's some people out there. I'm not saying I'm one of them, but I think
yeah,
there's some people out there that would do that.
yeah,
Like, I mean, I think that that's a spectrum for sure.
yeah. But I mean,
But yeah,
if you're
like,
forced
like this.
to work a bunch of minimum wage jobs to take care of yourself and you're you know you three kids and you're a single mom or whatever, like you're not going to have as many refined viewpoints, or you won't be as you won't have the time to like explore artistic visions as much, right? Like so, yeah,
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed on that entirely. And I think that's one of the biggest inhibitors is like time and energy to put into anything is really what inhibits it.
yeah,
And even I think now more than ever,
hmm,
because of just the way that life has become more and more consistently expensive,
hmm,
my avenues and opportunities to do things have been more and more limited
yeah, yeah, of
over
course,
time.
yeah,
Um, and that's really frustrating. And I agree with you that I think the reason on some level mainstream arts are the way they are is
mm,
because they've been completely cornered off for a privileged few because of the time economics of it.
yeah, yeah,
You
exactly,
know,
exactly,
there's no one going to break into any field of art if they don't have the time and energy to do that.
yeah, yeah, that's right, and which in itself like creates the economy where they will be more successful because they have fewer competitors, and
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
so
Well,
it's a very like vicious cycle where I think we're depriving humanity a lot of interesting perspectives just sort of in the pursuit of profits for the few.
agreed. I'm gonna, if I can find it, I'm gonna send you a video. It's like an economics video, but the thing that's fascinating about it is how the art world basically turned into like nothing to do with art and entirely to do with like investments, and that the
Totally, yeah, yeah,
artists could
and
choose. Yeah.
money laundering in some cases too, right? Like,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, those things are put in like these like cold storage, like fucking never to be seen again, just to accrue like currency.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like it's all just moving stocks at that point.
But I'm not saying that what I've done on Instagram is like art, but there are a couple of parallels, I think, in general. And I feel like we've been fortunate in existing in a space where this was still like we were able to explore what you could do with this channel. You know,
Yeah,
like I
no,
think of you very
absolutely.
much doing that too. You know, like you evoke pretty strong emotions about things that are just like crazy or funny or interesting through a platform before it was too exploited to just like maximize. Like that was always the intention all the time to like increase the ad revenue for Mark and his friends. But um, I don't know. We've been able to play around with the format a little, and I think that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, why do people follow you on Instagram?
Um, I think it's just most. I think it's mostly just for like the something resonates with them that I post every once in a while. They're like, oh yeah, like it's the same reason people look at like gore websites, or they look at it's something a little like uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I think some of the stuff, or it's a little edgy. It's like uh, a lot of. I think it goes for a lot of the accounts that you've interviewed.
Mm.
A lot of things are sanitized, so it's nice to have like, oh, here's like a little more elbow room,
Yeah.
like someone like saying something that may be, or posting something that may be subversive or controversial or outside of the normal narrative that's currently going on, but you know that their intentions are not cruel.
Hmm.
And I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
that space is kind of being more and more pushed to the fringes,
Hmm.
and it's really hard for people to enjoy um, or just like look at things or think about things that are controversial or make controversial jokes. And I'm like, you know, a compassionate person for
Hmm.
sure. I
Hmm.
definitely worry about the safety of people
Hmm.
and how they're doing in general, but I'm not too concerned with their like rules.
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned of like you can't say that. It's like, oh no, I'm just gonna say it louder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
I know that's a very juvenile way to approach it, maybe.
No, I think
Um,
it's a necessary perspective. There's something called the Barbara Streisand effect, where Barbara
yeah,
Streisand. Have you heard of this? Like she was trying
yeah,
to block out the coverage of her beachfront property from appearing in the magazines, and in doing so, like she just raised awareness all the more for it. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think that comes back from when like I don't know what is the term. Anonymous did it for the lulz back in the day.
Yeah.
Where it was like more for like
Yeah.
I think like whatever that was turned into a very silly like version of itself. But early on, it's like you can't do this online. Oh, we're gonna do that online.
Yeah.
Like we're not gonna let you regulate this wild west that's out here.
Someone once gave me a compliment on my account, which to me was, I don't know, probably the best compliment I've ever been given in that context, and that was that my account felt like going back to the early days of the internet, um,
Yeah,
and I thought that was such a cool thing. You know, like you don't know what to expect. It could be really funny, or something you're not allowed to say, or feel a little bit dangerous, or just
oh
be
yeah,
really interesting, or whatever it may be. Like I think the world needs people like that to challenge conventions a little, and especially to encourage other people to think twice about the things that they've taken for granted. Um,
agreed. I mean, I think for people of a, you know, maybe like if you're below a certain age, you're not gonna remember things like ogreish or
yeah, yeah, exactly.
like really subversive, like or opening a link to something and just being like, oh,
Yeah,
like there's no warning of what was gonna be in it. Like it was a completely different. Oh yeah, check this website out.
yeah,
With like an innocuous name like Lemon Party, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden you're with
exactly.
something entirely unexpected.
Yeah,
You know,
simpler
but
times.
and I agree. I think that's true. Your account is like that, and I like that vibe.
Yeah,
That
thank you. Um, so you have the 1,800 or so followers.
yeah.
Where do you want it to go? Like, if I talk to you again in a year's time, what do you hope your account is like?
I don't have any intentions whatsoever.
Hmm.
Like this is one of those things where like I don't plan anything. It's really just like the drain off of my brain. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
It's like it's one of those things where I'm like I'm not too busy trying to like my internal curation methods for it are already in place, so I don't have to think about it too
Hmm.
much.
Mm.
And so if people continue to follow,
Mm.
that's fine. But if it stopped tomorrow, like I had such a great time, more than I expected, with people who I genuinely like, and met some really cool people on there and had some cool conversations about interesting things.
Mm.
People across the globe been like I've had like just a good time.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And so if it ends or it grows, both are fine.
yeah. Um, good outlook, and one that I very much share. Um, what was the story behind your account name? You never told me.
I actually don't remember.
All
I
right.
mean, I made that name so long ago, and I know I had a reason,
Yeah.
but like I said, it dates back to MySpace, so
Mm.
I don't remember why the name is Random Exit. Like I know I had a reason, but like lost the time.
Yeah, fair enough. If you were to create your account today, would you give it the same name? Would you change the name?
I like that name. I've had it so long that it's become like my alter ego. It's like my Batman now.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to change it. I mean, I think it's like a lot of the Instagram accounts on that I follow have that I'm gonna call it like MC name
Hmm.
where it's like it's not trying too hard and it fits their personality and it's not like I think when people try too hard it can be a little off-putting.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna make this name that you're gonna call me by, but I feel like everyone has an organic in relation to their particular brand.
Yeah. Um, my my past iteration of my account, or the bigger one that was deleted.
Dude,
Um,
that one used to get me all the time. Like you've been blocked by this user. It used to drive me fucking nuts because I started being like, why? Like what the fuck did I do? Because
which
I'd see
which
it like
was clearly my intention,
that
and
was fucking
and and
solid,
what
dude.
I loved about that was this user has blocked you. It
Yeah.
only, like, it made people so indignant and upset and angry, but only people who didn't stop to think about what would a block actually look like. So they were all like
Right.
good people, because the bad people, the people that have been blocked 100 times,
Yeah.
they wouldn't see that, like they figure out, like, oh yeah, nothing. It wouldn't be proclaimed. It's only like the nice people that have only had pleasant interactions on Instagram. They would be like, "Oh
Right.
my God, what did I do?" And then on occasion, people would be really upset and send me, a lot of curse words and be like, "What did I ever do to you, you big piece of work?" Uh, yeah, that really, it cracked me
Oh,
up
I
a
just
lot.
realized you're not cursing on here. Should I not curse? Because like,
No, no, by all means. I,
okay,
I, I don't know why I'm not doing it, to be honest. I don't
no,
I don't use a lot of swear words in my daily life,
that's
and
really good.
eh.
That's definitely a better way to be. I wish I didn't.
But I know all the swear words. Should
Yeah.
should I end up in a
Well, if you need
situation
any
where,
more, I'll send you some.
yeah, that's great. Um, how do you feel about your online footprint? You said it's almost like a stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
What's your relationship to it?
It's like, you know, just kind of like my relationship to like my clothing. It's like nice that it's there and it reflects me.
Hmm.
That's basically like, oh, I'm dressed this way. I'm like decorated this way.
Hmm.
My account's this way. It's just another avenue of like, you know, your boudoir. It's like my little step into my boudoir.
Yeah,
He's apologize for the mess.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But so I like the analogy, and I think it mostly holds up. But there are a couple of layers to it. So like with my wardrobe, I feel good about it for the most part. But then,
Hmm.
I have my like old ratty sweatpants and the sweaters that I've had for a long time, and they have holes in them now, and I have to throw them out or use them as muffling for my little practice drum set that I have in my living room.
Yeah,
Um, are there things that you feel like, aged like milk, things you're not very proud of having?
definitely.
Yeah.
Although, you know what's weird? Some of them I do like. I think there's times in like, because you know you can go back and look at like old stories through the like what is it? I don't know what it's called, like the memories, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, those things where I'm like, oh, I got caught up in like a thing and didn't think about it, and then just like, I didn't. I was being part of like a group in that moment and not really
Mm.
being myself.
Hmm.
So the stuff like that,
Mm.
it's not on my main feed, nothing on there, but like in memories of stories, there's definitely that.
Hmm.
But then there's also going back and looking at stuff, and I'm like, oh, when things were a little less strict. And it's almost like, oh, I wish I could still fit into that because that looks so good.
Mm.
I look so good in like those stories, like
Hmm.
that, oh man, like I'll go back and look and be like, man, that day I was posting fire, dude. Like I'm almost like you go back and look and you're almost like a fan of your own stuff. Like,
Totally.
oh damn.
Yeah, 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 for sure. I do that. Um, there's something, yeah, like indulgent with doing that
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's a good time for sure. Even just like browsing through old screenshots on my phone, I think I can have a lot of fun with that. I asked you about this already. What about like Instagram as a whole? Like, what do you think are the best parts of Instagram?
Um, it's strangely less limited than other formats, right? So
Such
the other
as?
formats seem to be like Twitter's really about saying what's on your mind.
Mm-hmm.
TikTok's really about video. Facebook's really about posting and sharing like links to stuff or
Mm-hmm.
like maybe some photos.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Instagram is automatically like a mood board. So whatever you go on, you're automatically getting like a flavor profile of the account
Yeah.
instantly.
Yeah.
And then from there you can use the other aspects of other social media um, devices. Like you can put your Twitter opinion on there if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It
That's right.
still works.
Yeah.
You can post a video like TikTok videos. It still works.
Yeah.
So it's like it's less limiting. I think is what I like about it.
Yeah.
It gets and like that instant picture of someone's like when people would post like the block of their pictures on their account of their feed, it's like here's a flavor, and
Yeah.
it's like good, got the flavor profile.
And you can extract a lot of information. You can surmise a lot from just seeing those like 9 posts or 12 posts or whatever when you go to
For sure.
someone's profile.
The moment you like see like 3 bars of suffering meat,
Yeah.
you know what suffering meat
Yeah,
is.
yeah, you're gonna
You
have
know,
a good time following that account, for sure. What are some of the worst parts of Instagram?
it's like anything else online, which is it always feels like there's a leash that's being pulled tighter and tighter as you stay there.
Hmm.
It's like the opposite of a warm bath. It just gets like more uncomfortable the more you're in it.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like it's still good enough for me to be there and doing stuff,
Mm.
but you start to feel like, hmm, um, they're definitely like restricting. They're like moving you into a direction that they want you to go in,
Yeah. So
and
so that would be my follow-up question. So where's the leash pulling you? Where does it want to go?
I think it wants you to go to whatever, like it wants you to go to more TikTok when TikTok was like becoming popular. It wants you to not like the big one that I would get a lot is I would make a lot of jokes about suicide.
Hmm.
And that more than anything else was the thing that like would get me really in trouble.
Hmm.
Like I could post some like provocative images or things that are like, I don't know, definitely not safe for general work.
Mm.
Like I have to be careful opening my own account when I'm at work. But the suicide stuff was really interesting to me because it would be you can't post this
Yeah.
hint, even hint at a
Yeah.
suicidal thing
Yeah.
without us warning you. But if you need help, you should reach out. And I was like, not that I'm suicidal, but like, what if someone is, and that is their way of reaching out? It seemed like that's not encouraging people to talk about this
Yeah.
subject, even.
Yeah. They're stigmatizing it more by doing that.
Yeah,
I
and then
completely agree.
kind of like limiting avenues of connection.
Yeah. I think whatever instruments that ostensibly the smartest people on the planet that work for Instagram, what they're trying to devise for the platform, they're blunt. You know, they don't
Yeah,
understand satire, they don't understand context, they don't understand personality, and therefore it's easier for them to just have the more authoritarian clamp down on everything that even closes in on the topic.
I know we keep like skirting outside of the main topic of Instagram, and I apologize, but I think it like not only applies to Instagram but culture in general.
Yeah,
I think we live in what like I commonly refer to as like new Victorian times, and what I mean by that is we're in this globalized society where we think we're really technologically advanced. We've just gone through a revolution that has greatly like moved culture forward in Victorian times, industrial revolution kind of, and then in our times, the technological revolution of computers. And I think people are more concerned with decorum and like these pretext of having morals than they are with actually having results.
yeah,
So they're like, yeah, we're really advanced and we think about things way more logically than we used to. And we've got all these rules that everyone has to apply. But if
mm,
you look at the Victorian times, they're just locking people in bedlam,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They're not really dealing. It's like during quarantine, they they um they swept Echo Park in LA of all the homeless people who built up,
Problem
a
solved.
community.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, we're gonna say we're like really more compassionate
yeah,
and we're way more thoughtful and we're way more advanced, but we're actually acting more barbaric than we have in a long time.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we are right now.
Um, I'm not
And
entirely
that
sure if
applies
I
to,
have this correctly, but you said barbaric. In ancient times in Greece, they they would make fun of foreigners that came into Greece, and they said that
right.
it sounded like this when they spoke: bar, 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 and so they
Yeah.
called them barbarians and barbaric. So like it starts with xenophobia and like racism.
Usually, sorry, 1 second. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
Give me a chance to drink a little. If you're watching this, I hope you're having a nice time. I'm having a nice time.
Sorry about that.
No worries whatsoever.
Hope that doesn't interrupt the flow.
No, not at
Um,
all. Um,
yeah, no, I've heard that before, and yeah, it's
it's funny, but
yeah,
what I meant to say was like I think we regard ourselves as having this incredibly enlightened society. You know,
yeah,
the things that the poorest, most marginalized person of our community have access to today is miles beyond what even kings had a few hundred years ago. You know, like we have running
sure,
water and electricity, and we have I don't know, penicillin, whatever. But if you look at inequality and oppression, I think we're an outlook on the future. We're in uh, yeah, like a very what's the word, precarious time where a lot of people are very vulnerable in ways that they haven't really been before, and the systems
agreed,
that are keeping them oppressed are becoming much more, you know, systematic. They're hard coded in ways that are tougher than ever to break out of, and they benefit the few at the expense of the many. So yeah,
absolutely. I
tough
mean,
tough time to be alive.
I think people are always like, well, imagine how bad your life would be if you were a serf in medieval times, right?
Yeah,
Like if you were like a farmer in medieval times, like if you were a farmer in medieval times, your day-to-day life would be less controlled than it is now. You wouldn't have your anyone looking over your shoulder. Your days would be like dictated by your own like I got to go farm because of the weather,
yeah,
but most of the time you would spend your time in the village with friends and family.
yeah,
Like there's this really skewed view that the past was this like consistently uncomfortable and brutal environment, which is just not true.
yeah,
To like elevate the kind of you just wouldn't have a like I go to work and there's a camera watching me.
yeah,
That's like unfathomable to like someone. even 100 years ago, like, what?
Yeah,
You're just gonna have eyes on you all the time?
yeah. I totally, and it's very much like catering to the lowest common denominator in that it treats all of us as if we are potential criminals, potential,
Absolutely.
that we're breaking the rules somehow, or that we are causing, we're rocking the boat, um,
Yeah,
causing some sort of threat. It's unfortunate. I hope it goes in a different direction in the future, but to be honest, I don't see it. I know, 120 years ago, whenever they had electricity become more of a thing, they were like, "This is incredible. Imagine if we have this, we won't have to toil in the fields
yeah,
anymore now, right? Like we can all just relax and have a nice time and eat grapes and create poetry and art. But we're working more than they ever did, and,
absolutely.
and now they're like Chat GPT or whatever large language models. Wow, that's gonna free up our time so much. No, it's not. It's just gonna change the trajectory for our productivity for the people that have power. And it's always like
Agreed.
power and violence. That's the only thing that sort of steers society.
Like,
Yeah.
there's a really great historian that I've gone to see a couple of lectures by, and he's written some books, but he always points out like democracy is not the default. Like democracy is like a really hard thing to maintain,
Hmm.
and like anything that's kind of um puts like has those like people first ideals,
Hmm.
like um it's really easy to lose that stuff.
Yeah,
And I
of
think
course.
in
Yeah.
you know our laziness and complacency is letting that ebb away slowly.
Yeah.
And because it's like a slow, movement,
Hmm.
like it's allowed to happen because you get used to every new environment that you're in.
And over time, I
It
feel like
becomes
it's
the
it's
norm.
it's diluting the concept of it too. It's changing the semantic meaning of the word itself. So it's less about
Yeah.
here are these specific things that we live by and that we do, and it's more around having more aspirational language around like freedom, democracy. Like
Right.
happiness, and they don't mean anything anymore. And if you well, I shouldn't say they don't mean anything, but they don't mean as much. But if you trace it back to, yeah, back to the I don't know, was it Romans, Greeks? I don't know. They had something called sortition, where they effectively like did a lottery for government. So if you have
Yeah.
mostly farmers and nurses and teachers as part of your
Yeah.
community, then you would
Athenian democracy.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like you would just draw a lottery thing and make sure that they would be representatives for the actual community, and they wouldn't be
Yeah.
like it is now, where it's a handful of bought out billionaires that are calling the shots for the rest of us, and we're just here to see what happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Who are trained to lie to the people as best they can to manipulate them the best they can in
right,
higher institutions.
right. While still
Um,
collecting the paycheck from Purdue Pharma. Yeah.
exactly.
um,
All right, it looks like we're starting a revolutionary.
yeah, it always goes down this path. I don't know why. It's just me, I guess.
I don't know why.
um, what was the reason you last followed someone?
I'm trying to think who I last followed. A lot of times nowadays, it's someone who's followed me for a long time, and
Mm,
then they'll like respond a lot, and I'll be like, "All right,
mm,
I'll follow you back."
mm,
I don't know if it's usually that
mm-hmm.
like they've just interacted with me a lot,
Yeah,
and I didn't know them.
yeah.
Because I think I've like mostly accrued like everyone you've interviewed, I know either pretty well online and I've known like watched them for years at this point, I think,
Mm,
or at least peripherally have seen something from them.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
So all the people that I've talked to so far, they don't all have huge like follower counts. Some of
Yeah,
them are smaller, some of them are bigger, but they are all part of the same like influencing the influencers. So some of them may have fewer people that don't necessarily are followed by a bunch of people, or they don't have a ton of people interacting with them, but they have the right people interacting with them.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's what's funny. I think that's what I really started to like be like, oh, my Instagram account, I like it. It's like I got like the cool kids to follow.
yeah,
Like, and it took a while,
yeah,
but I was like, oh, these accounts that I fucking have been watching like for a while, they follow me now,
yeah,
and I was like, that's cool. That's like fucking rad
I
that they
was
saw something in it that like was interesting to them.
totally. I was so proud of some of the earlier mutuals. You know, when people followed me back, people that I
Yeah.
like revered, really, really looked up to, and then they all of a sudden followed me. It's a good feeling, like a big pat on the back on my ego. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the weirdest ones was like one of the biggest first accounts I really got into was Ben Ditto,
mhm.
and like he came to LA and invited me to go to this like meeting within a special effects place,
Oh, cool.
like a big special effects studio that they shoot The Mandalorian in, and he was like checking stuff out. It's like, oh wow, this is rad. Like I just get to go hang out with this guy from Instagram at like this multi-million-dollar facility,
Yeah, incredible.
like it shoots like professional TV, like special effects, and the plate. It was like walking into like what do you call it, like a bridge of a starship. It was really weird.
Amazing.
But it's like, oh, this is like, there is some benefit to this. It's like enhancing your life some like by interacting with these cool people.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. Um, I'm curious to learn what is something that you wish that more people knew. Can be big, can be small, can be about you, can be about the world, can be anything.
Not to get too philosophical,
You may.
but I mean, um, just how finite time is.
Yeah.
Like I spend a lot of I think when you're really younger and like you think that there's an infinite time ahead of you, you know? And as you like become an adult and like get older, you start to realize in hindsight how precious all those moments are, So
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like it's a cliche, but to just be in the moment in a not like commodified term of that sense where you're just selfish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like in the moment, like, enjoy.
Yeah. Stop to
Try and
smell
make
the
this
flowers every now and then. Yeah.
yeah, enjoy the memory while it's happening, not just in hindsight.
Yep. That is true and also profoundly scary to me. Um,
Agreed. I am like terrified of like aging and death.
yeah.
And like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that have that like radical nihilism where they're like, you can give meaning to anything. I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
terrified.
Yeah.
Do not want to.
Totally. Totally. Who do you think I should talk to next?
I don't know. I mean, you've hit like kind of a lot of the major ones. Um, uh, that like you know, I, like you said, I feel like there's a weird invisible thread that we're all connected by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's hard to uh,
We're on the same watch
like,
lists. Yep.
yeah. Um, Back when I was like first starting, there was Supreme Jesus Lover. I don't
Mm.
think she posts much anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
she was one of my favorite accounts. Ben Ditto, I think, is like a continuous thread with a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I can't think of many. You kind of hit like all of the big ones for me. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that, given that I've only done 8 or 9 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
but it's an all-star team, dude.
yeah, it really is. Truly. Is there anything you would like to ask me?
Um, yeah, how did you get into this? Because like your account, before like we interacted,
Mm-hmm.
like was more of like a bigger account in my mind.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't, you know, like one of the hubs.
Yeah.
Do you know if like, you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, for sure.
So like, how did you
So
kind of
I'll briefly tell you the story. So it started out of almost like desperation or loneliness or something like that, where I just felt like it's the exact same reason why I started playing music. I had been listening to music for a long time. I felt like I had discerning taste and I understood what good sounds like and what it looks like and probably what it would take to do it, but I had never done it. But yeah, same story. I followed a couple of accounts. I'm like, I'm in awe of what these people are doing. They're virtuosos at their game, but I bet I could do it too. And then I felt like there was a voice that was not yet expressed in me, and so I chose to just like pursue it and take every day with a bit of like gratitude and patience and try to follow people and reshare stuff and give them credit to say like I appreciate what you're doing. Every time I reshare a story, I'll tag someone, or for the most part, I'll try to tag it. It's so hard to remember sometimes, but um, I did that. A couple of people very graciously like reached out and offered kindness and said, when you want to be part of our group chat, or we started having separate conversations, and before you know it, like over time, it develops into actual relationships and friendships,
Yeah.
um, and it's not like from one day to the next, but you show up consistently over time. You share things that have a similar like thread in terms of humor or in terms of observations. You're in the group chats, you like each other, you have a nice time, you make each other giggle or laugh, or you share something you think is interesting. Um, Someone with a bigger account, for whatever reason, takes you under their wing. We share stuff. All of a sudden, you have a couple of thousand followers. Before you know it, again, someone who is like a minor TV celebrity or a movie star starts resharing your stuff. That leads to bigger celebrities or big bands or whatever, all of a sudden
Yeah.
resharing your stuff, and before you know it, you're a big account. But you're still the same like creepy nerd as you always were. Like it doesn't change fundamentally. So that's my story. Like my philosophy when I had 300 followers was exactly the same as when I had 60,000.
Yeah.
It's just like whatever I find interesting, whatever makes me giggle is the thing that I want to share. And I think I can point to maybe like four or five lucky breaks where
Yeah.
someone with their own following that was like big enough. You mentioned Bandito in your case, like
Yeah.
I had a couple of those. Um,
Yeah. I think Suffering Meat was another one that
yeah,
really helped me out a
yeah,
lot too.
totally.
Posting stuff.
And I still have a couple of heroes that I've never like interacted with. I've tried and tried and tried to like, hey, look, I'm such a big fan of yours. I'm resharing your stuff, and I'll leave the funny comment on your post. And I can only imagine that they either don't see it or they don't care, or they look at my account and they're like, oh, this guy sucks. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but yeah,
Uh,
it's
can I ask
less
you
of
a
a
question?
deliberate strategy. Yeah.
Have you like musicians you like follow you and you get hyped from that, like way hyped from that?
Yes. A couple. I don't know. Like it was when I lost my old account. I think I lost a lot of those followers, so I don't know how
Yeah.
close we were. But I also don't really know that band, but Mastodon. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
they followed me, and like I think they reshared stuff too. And people would reach out to me saying like, "Why does Mastodon follow you?" And I'm like, I don't know. Um, what's her name? Charlotte Kemp Mule, whatever, something like that. Um, she used to follow me. She's cool. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I don't know. They're a handful, and still
Nice.
to this day, like smaller acts that I think are just like cool people. But the way I think about it, it's like yes, the content is the original like initial bridge, but then once you're past that, it's like the personalities behind them, and then
Yeah. Agreed.
everything becomes like secondary. It doesn't matter what they do for work or if they're famous or not. It's just like
No.
this is a person who is going through this like life experience
Well,
with a
also,
similar lens to me.
I I think something happens after a while with these people, like that you kind of interact a little bit with online and follow their accounts, is you start to invest in their life like you would a real friend that you see in
Yeah,
life.
they are real friends,
That you share their
ostensibly.
triumphs and you worry about their adversities.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're like, oh man, that's good that you did that, or like, I'm sorry you're having a bad day. Like I really do feel bad. Like that sucks.
And you will become the average of the people you spend your time with. So if they care
Yeah,
about something, all of a sudden you care about that thing, even though you wouldn't
yeah,
typically have cared about it in the past.
yeah.
And so it's a relationship like any other, but based more around your personality and the way you react to the world, as opposed to like how you present yourself in your daily life. Uh, Last question for you is, what was this interview like compared to your expectations?
I guess I didn't have any expectations. Like I've seen your other some of the other interviews you've
Mm,
done,
mhm,
so like met my expectations. I guess like once it's always interesting to see who's behind the account. So, but not so much the interview, but like you as a person.
mm,
It's very interesting to see like oh, this person's really into music and they're like,
Hmm.
they've got like, you know, these tastes in this stuff. So it's like, that's what's fascinating to me is like I didn't have any expectations of the interview other than what I'd already seen.
Hmm.
So it met them, and I it doesn't deviate. But it's like really cool to talk to you in person
Hmm. Yeah,
because
likewise.
you know it's like another layer to the onion,
Yeah.
and like you know,
I've gone through periods where I try to almost ignore the fact or ignore the things that make me me, the things that excite me. You go to work and all of a sudden I don't talk about drums, it's not something I nerd out about. But in
yeah,
my personal life, like when it's just me, like drums is one of my favorite things in the world. It's like something that actually brings me uh, sincere like joy. But I think Instagram is a similar thing where I downplay some of the more like notable aspects just because I think by removing myself from them, I invite a more open conversation about anything that can that can take me anywhere. Um, but yeah, when you interact directly with someone, like you have to have a point of view, you have to have an experience or a life, and that stuff comes up, I guess.
yeah,
Um, if there ever is like a part two to this, I hope it would be okay if I reached out and said like let's follow up on some of the things we talked about last time, or a couple of new things, or whatever it may
anytime,
be.
dude.
But I had a lot of fun doing this, and
Me too.
I really appreciate.
I think I may have like tangented it a little bit on some
No,
things.
no,
So
no, not at all. Like that was very much my intention. I feel like I got what I was looking for and then some. So like I'm more than grateful.
hey, I'm
Um,
grateful for you too, dude.
yeah,
Thank you for having me on and like doing this. This was fun.
yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. I'll send you the link to the recording in just a little bit, and we can take it from there. And let me know if there's anything you want to edit out, or if we're good with sharing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna tell you right now, you can post it, dude. I don't. I'm like
All
pretty
right.
uninhibited. So if you're happy, I'm happy.
All right. Amazing. Well, I have that recorded now, so I will do that. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Boom. You too, man.
Thank you. Bye.